Welcome to Poll Everywhere, an online student response tool where teachers post questions and students respond in a silent and anonymous format using their computer, tablet, or cell phone. Now, once you log in, you'll get to this screen. And what you want to do is create questions to ask your students. But you don't see a create button. You actually have to hover over in the left upper hand corner here, and the create button will appear. All right. So I'm going to push the create button, and it will take you to a screen where you'll see uh, a lot of different types of questions you can ask your students to engage them, to probe or to assess their knowledge. As you see, there's multiple choice, there's rank things in order, surveys, open-ended questions. If you click down here where the three dots are, we have even more choices in how you survey or engage your students. Today we're going to look at three different ones that you can use in a classroom to help your students learn the information, the content a little bit better. And it's fun and engaging. What you will need in order to truly access the site, you will need a projector so you can project the questions. And two, you will need the students to have some type of mobile device, whether it's a computer, tablet, or their cell phone. In elementary school, we don't allow cell phones, so that is not one of our options using Poll Everywhere, but we do have Chromebooks. So let's start with one way you can utilize this site, this technology tool. We're going to probe our students for their prior knowledge before we engage in the lesson. So one of the ways that you can do that is we're actually going to use a word cloud for this one. What happens with this, you pose a question, like for example, what is technology? And the students respond to this question by putting in words, associated memories, things that are connected with technology so that you can gauge how much they already know and get an understanding of what they bring to the table in this lesson. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create it. When I get to the create screen, you'll already see up here the links to how they're going to respond, but we're getting to that a little bit more. Right now, we want to configure how we want this presentation to be set up and seen by them. So, how people can respond? Well, there are two types of responses. One is the website, one is the text messaging, but I'm going to unclick that because my students won't have that capability. Then I'm going to go to the audience restriction and identity. I do want everyone to participate with no restrictions. This is the part where you want to make a decision whether you want their screen name to be shown or you want it to be completely anonymous and so they feel more safe sharing information, especially if they're more worried about being right or wrong, or they're more of your quiet speakers that don't want to be identified. But for this particular, because we're just probing, they can use their screen name. It allows me to see if they're actually participating, and there's no right or wrong answer. I just want to see what they already know. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Response settings, they can respond as many times as they like because, once again, I am probing and see what they already know, and there's no right or wrong answer. Do I want to allow changes? Now that's up to you because I'm just probing to see what they know, and usually their first thought is their first true connection to the topic. I don't want them to make any changes. Now, if you're more concerned and worried about spelling or grammar and things like that, you may want them to have that option so they can correct their responses. But for right now, no, I don't. Schedule lock and unlock times. I don't worry too much about the lock unless I'm having multiple questions throughout my lesson. Because when they respond, I want that question to be closed before we enter into another one. but I definitely want to unlock it. And usually when I set them up, I go ahead and have it unlocked within the next 5 minutes. It stays unlocked until you lock it. Um, so it depends on when you set this up. Now you can always go back and edit your lock and unlock time. For this particular screencast, I am just going to unlock it 5 minutes from now so I can show you what it looks like. And once it's unlocked, I want to lock it back so that we can move on to the next question. Now in class, once it's unlocked, for whatever reason, say, oh, we want to go back and unlock it a day from now or an hour from now, it does give me that unlock time option depending on how you pace your lesson, how you lock it back up. Now, the moderation section is not available to me because I have the free version of Poll Everywhere, but the paid version gives you an opportunity to filter your students' responses and censor profanity or any inappropriate comments that they may be tempted to post. But with the free version, you don't have that option. So over here, you can actually test it to see what it would look like on the screen. But like I said, it has to be activated in order to do that. And so I've just activated it just so I can see what it looks like on my screen. So what is technology? And what I see most, electronics. And I submit that, and as you see, that word pops up. Now, even if I had a sentence or more of a phrase or statement, a device used to communicate, it is going to also fit those words. And as you can see, we're forming a word cloud that the students can visually see on the board about their connection to technology. I'm going to do one more response. You can see how a word cloud is formed. So as you type in and words become more frequent, the bigger the word appears on the word cloud. And it does keep track of that if you see that on the screen. All right. Now, once you have tested it, you configured the settings to how you want it to be, you can present it. So it can be presented from the web. I prefer to present it within my PowerPoint because it's a part of my lesson. So it's embedded in the lesson that I'm doing. And so as a presenter, I would need to download the presenter app on my phone, which I do have, so that I can embed it into my PowerPoint and control it that way in real time. And what will happen when the slide comes up, the information for them to log in will be there and the question, and they will automatically just go ahead and begin to log in through their Chromebooks, and they'll see it real time, their responses. Well, how do they get that? Well, they'll see it on the screen. They can type that in. Or sometimes I actually email them. I share the link with them through their emails. So all they can do is click on the email so they don't have to type in and worry about if they miss a character when they are putting it into the search engine. And I can embed it also into a web page or a blog. So if I actually had it on my web page, the poll question for today, they could just go to our class web page and click on that, which also saves time. All right, so now I'm actually going to show you how to do another type of activity with your students. So I'm going to actually create again. And as you can see, this is still green. So green means that it's active right now and it's accepting responses. And remember, we already said we want to lock it up 5 minutes after we had started. So about time that we start a new question. This will be locked up for the students to answer the next one. So now I want to show how to assess the quality of your lesson with an exit ticket. So what did they learn while they were experiencing and engaging in the activities you presented? For this one, I'm going to do a multiple choice questions, which are very familiar to students already, but it's a good way to see as a class what the students know and what the students understand. So the question I'm going to use is just a question that's from social studies. What is the capital of North Carolina? Just so we can get an idea of how this works. And of course, you have your multiple choice answers. We're going to pick Greensboro, Wilmington, Raleigh, and I'm going to add one more by clicking on that. And I'm going to say Charlotte, which most students think is the capital because it's the biggest of the cities listed. All right, so you can move the questions around if you want to change where the multiple choice questions go by clicking on this area here and moving it around. You can insert an image to go with your question. Maybe you have something, an image or a visual to go with the question and your answer choices. Or I may not want as many answer choices that are listed and I can delete it. So let's go ahead and create our activity. Once again, we're back to the screen where we configure. We're not using text messaging. My audience, everyone. This time I wanted anonymous. I really don't want to know at this point who doesn't understand. I just want to get a feel about the class and the quality of the lesson and whether the lesson reached um, more than half of the class that I expect. I usually try to aim for at least 85% of the class success and hope 100% course. This one answer. I don't want them to answer it over and over again because it is multiple choice. So it's already up there up to one time. Allow changes. I will allow changes for that just in case they have a second thought. What you don't want to get into is having the students kind of piggyback on each other after they see other people responses or they have that discussion and then they change it. So you don't get a true response of what they understand. But just to give them a second thought because maybe they'll click it or answer too hastily, we'll allow a change. We're going to unlock it 5 minutes from now just for the screencast and unlock it and lock it back 5 minutes after that. All right, so we have our settings. We want to test it, so let's activate that and test it and see what that would look like on the screen. So on the computer, they just click their answer choice, and just for the sake of argument, I'm going to click Charlotte because that comes up a lot. And as you can see, the graph will start to form. As students start to put their answers in, you will start to see a bar graph so that you can visually see. It doesn't tell them what the right or wrong answer is. So there's no pressure or feeling like you got the wrong answer. But it does give the teacher a good idea of what to do in order to engage them more or have them have a better understanding of the content. And the presentation options are still there. This will be in my PowerPoint slideshow, and I will share it just the same way I shared the other type question. So those are two different ways that you can use Poll Everywhere. The other options that you have, I show great screen. All right. So these are great surveys are good for polling. One thing I did want to take a look at is how they feel about what they're learning. This is a quick and easy way to see whether they understood. How do you feel after the lesson? Do you not get it at all? Are you okay and ready to move on? I understand some of it, but not all of it and need some more help. And so this is good for um, gauging how your students understand a lesson. You can change the question here. This is all about how you feel. If you chose to do that in the morning when they came in, but you can change it to engage or see how they felt about your lesson. The self-paced quiz here is also a wonderful tool, especially after what I do in my class, which is a video conference with a guest speaker, usually a scientist. And so you can actually, it's already set up for the type of questions I would ask. How would you rate the content? As far as learning, I probably would make it more kid friendly. Did you feel like you learned a lot during this session? How would you rate the presenter? Was it a good speaker? Were they engaging? You can change the type of questions you have in the survey here to see how they felt about the presenter. These are open-ended. If you do the drop down here, it gives you other choices. It could be a word cloud. What's one word to describe your experience? There's some other ones here. Ranked in order, which were the three, out of these three, what would you say was the most important thing that the presenter shared? So these are great activities. And whenever you get to the point of create, you go through the same activities, configure your settings, activate your poll so that the students have access to it. So the most important part after you create is definitely setting up the time to lock and unlock, or will not be visible to your audience, which I had to learn very quickly because I kept the question. Another thing I want to point out before we end the screencast is grouping. So you have different types of questions, and you might want to group them in particular topics or areas. So I'm going to move this one, and I'm actually going to rename the group, and I'm putting it in the science section of my questions. And I want this in a category. I don't want it to be ungrouped anymore. And I'm going to rename this as well. This is social studies. The great thing about this site is the wonderful opportunities, multiple opportunities you have to engage your students in their learning and develop their content knowledge. The other thing is the helpful area they have here. If you have any questions, they do have video tutorials and a question answer area for any kinks that you may have in the program or concerns. This area tells you more about the pricing and the upgrades. And remember, the upgrades enables you to have more of the reporting option, being able to control what is posted on the screen, and the automatic censoring. So you get a little bit more control and flexibility with the program. I'll return here. Thank you for joining me on this Poll Everywhere screencast, and I hope that it was helpful and useful for you in the classroom.